Welcome back, everybody. This is Rand. I got a special segment for you here today. This is going to be a lot of fun. I have Tom Courts back to join us. How you doing, Tom?
Hey, great. Great to be back.
So, what Tom wanted to do, and I said I agreed. I thought this would be a great idea. We're going to do. Tom is going to cut down the Rams roster to 53 guys for us. He's going to take his first hack at it. Now, wanted to point out if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel and we have a visual that's going to help you sort this out. We're going to move guys from the roster to the cut list. And if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you can go to the podcast and we have a couple additional segments on that I think you'll enjoy. So just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. Now, when we go to our roster list here, what you'll see at the top is a roster count of 90. And we're going to whittle this down, or I should say, Tom is going to whittle this down to 53 guys. This should be a little bit of fun. Tom, you're ending the dreams of some of these guys. I hope you're aware of that.
Yeah, this is a stacked roster. I mean, there's a lot of great potential here, and so really glad to see how much talent the Rams brought in. And yeah, it is going to be tough to cut to 53. I mean,
Yeah, I remember we talked separately before this, and I remember doing this. I do this all the time, actually, this time of year. And I remember last year getting it down to 53 was pretty easy. It was just a matter of those last four or five guys flip a coin. It wasn't really that stressful. But this year, I mean, there's like 62 guys, I think, that I would love to have on this roster, but it's not going to happen.
yeah, it's there's a lot of great young talent, and I think one of the reasons is the draft was very full of talent, and there's also a lot of unrestricted free agents that, or I'm sorry, undrafted free agents that were picked up after the draft, largely I think because of the COVID impact. Right, there's a lot of extra talent that was in this draft. A lot of guys got extra years and so forth, and stayed in another year, and so this is the beginning. But next year, I anticipate the same thing will happen.
Okay, I got the roster up here. We're going to whittle that down. Everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that 90 number up there. We're going to push through this until we get down to 53. Have at it, Tom. You want to start with the quarterback position? Any cuts there?
No, I think the Rams are dead set on carrying three quarterbacks. They always do, and they'll keep the three they have: Stafford, Wolford, and Perkins.
And we're just going to move left or right here. Running back position, we got Akers, Henderson, Funk, Xavier Jones, Raymond Calais, and the rookie Kyron Williams out of Notre Dame.
Yeah,
I imagine one or two are going to have to go.
yeah, let's start with a couple of the obvious ones. I think for sure Calais is gonna go, so we can move Raymond Calais over. And unfortunately, I like Xavier Jones a lot, but I think we're gonna have to move him over. The Rams typically carry three running backs on their 53 man, and a few of them on the practice squad in case somebody gets hurt. But so we're gonna start there, and then we'll take another swing at this on the next round of cuts.
Yeah, and of course, you know what always happens, especially with a running back position. Unfortunately, someone gets dinged up, bound to happen. Wide receiver, this is a really good group. Needless to say, a few of
Yeah,
them are
it
going to
is.
have to go.
We actually, yeah. So we have obviously Cup, Jefferson, Atwell, Jacob Harris, Skronik, Koski, Akers, Jackson, and then they obviously signed Allen Robinson as a free agent and brought in a undrafted free agent, Lance McCutcheon. So, and then we also have Brandon Powell over there in the special teams row, and
Right.
a lot of people anticipate him getting some wide receiver play this year. So, yeah, a lot of guys. I think we'll just take the first cut group here of Koski, Akers, Jackson, and McCutcheon. And
You say Jackson and McCutcheon?
McCutcheon, yeah. So we'll cut four guys off of this list, and we'll get down to six. Plus, we'll have Brandon Powell as a seventh.
Okay. Hey, as a side note, when you saw that name McCutcheon, what did you think of?
Oh, Lawrence. I don't know if he's
Yeah.
related is or not.
Yeah, I did some digging and apparently not. I couldn't find any reference to that.
I would have
Um,
imagined we would have heard about it
yeah,
if it were.
right. A lot of the younger Ram fans are probably not familiar with Lawrence McCutcheon, one of the
Oh
great
boy.
running backs and the Rams' history of great running backs.
Yeah, fantastic. So
Tight
we move over to
ends.
we move over to tight end. I think we'll go with our top three: Higby, Blanton, and Hopkins. I think Markway. The Rams do typically keep four tight ends. I think this year we'll have to see, but I think right away uh, Carter and Pettigrew, the two undrafted free agents, are going to go. Although I think they really like Pettigrew, and I would give him an outside shot of making the roster. But for now, we'll cut Carter and Pettigrew.
Yeah, and the wide receiver Jacob Harris, he's kind of a hybrid. Jamal Pettigrew, I did a little bit of checked up on him a little bit. 6'7" and a really good athlete. So I think he
Yeah,
has a shot, but he's got a tough road to make this roster.
yeah, for sure.
On to the offensive line, we're down to 81.
Yeah, so in the offensive line, this is a big group. Now they do typically keep nine offensive linemen, and so I think what we'll do is move um, Chandler Brewer, Jeremiah Cologne, Max Percher, and Adrian Ely, who was a free agent signed not too long ago, over to the cut list.
Yeah, I was
And
searching for Cologne's name. You said Brewer, Cologne, and who else is off this roster?
Percher and Ely, yeah.
Okay.
And Percher is the international player, so they'll almost certainly keep him as a practice squad player because he is a bonus practice squad player. So you
Right.
get
And
16
does
other
that
practice
continue? I know
squads.
he was last year. Is that continue? They can have such a roster exemption moving forward with the same player?
Yeah, it's an international league player, so I don't believe that impacts year over year impacts things.
Okay. We're down to 77. Did you want to jump to special teams? You want to save that for last? You want to go to defensive line or special teams?
Let's see here. I think what we want to do is, if you don't mind, if we'll also go back to the offensive line and take Snyder off, the undrafted free agent.
San Jose State.
Okay.
Okay.
And yeah, so if we go down to, we'll leave special teams as is, leave a little drama for the which punter we're going to keep. Um, and go on down to defensive line. Obviously, we have Donald Gaines, Ashawn, Copeland, Heck, and Bobby Brown. Ernest Brown is there, and then a couple of undrafted free agents who I don't see making the roster, Dion Novel and Elijah Garcia. So we can move those two off.
There's going to be some tough decisions there.
Yeah,
Defensive
yeah, for
line.
sure. Yeah, it's going to be a tough. There's probably end up cutting one more, and so I'll have to come back to that one.
Okay. You got a bunch of guys listed as edge players.
Yeah, there's a lot of edge. They brought in a lot of edge players, and it's a little up in the air. I think there's going to be a really heavy competition for that fifth edge.
Now,
They
one
went,
question before you get started. You see Jonah Williams as strictly edge?
yeah, I mean, that's where they typically have him, but yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
there's
I don't think he's even gotten any snaps, so I'm not sure myself. I always thought of him as defensive end, defensive line. But uh, go ahead, though. Who are
yeah, I
your
mean,
edge guys?
I think yeah. So we got Floyd Hollins, Garrett Lewis, as you said, Jonah Williams, Daniel Hardy, who was the seventh round draft pick, and then they actually had four of their 17 undrafted free agents at edge. So Hughes Murray, Braden Thomas, Benton Whitley, and Keir Thomas. So we don't know which of these guys are gonna potentially make an impact. One or two of these undrafted free agents will make the team at least, if history is a guide. But it's just so hard to predict. So, but anyway, having said that, I think we'll cut Williams and then the 4 undrafted free agents: Hughes, Murray, Thomas, Whitley, and Keir Thomas.
Connor Williams has been kind of hanging on for a little while now. It's one at a time to make sure I don't make a mistake. We're down to 69 players, and we're on to inside linebacker.
Yeah, so inside linebackers, not a lot of depth there. They had signed player Anthony Hines a while ago. Obviously, the big free agent signing was Bobby Wagner to join Ernest Jones, Trevin Howard, Christian Roseboom, and the perhaps the most popular or most likely undrafted free agent to make the squad is Jake Hummel from Iowa State. So, but having said that, they typically carry 4 inside linebackers. I think we'll cut Anthony Hines here and come back and look at this in a little bit.
It's a position that it's really never been a strength, and then all of a sudden you have Ernest Jones and Bobby Wagner there. But you're right. After that, Trevin Howard has proven he can contribute. Roseboom, kind of a special teams guy, kind of interesting situation there at inside linebacker.
Yeah.
Cornerback, this was a position going into the draft I shared with you many times was my biggest concern. We seem to have alleviated that. At least I hope so. Got some cuts here, though.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we have what do we have 11 cornerbacks in the cornerback room, and interestingly, I think they started the 53 man last year with 4 or maybe 5, because there was a weird situation last year where Hecker was on the injured list, and so he wasn't actually on the opening 53. Obviously, he came on before they played their first game, but so that original 53 man roster they came out with last year is a little misleading. I think they might have, but they did start with 4 cornerbacks last year. Anyway, this year I think they're going to start with more than that. I think they have a lot of guys here that they want to keep on the roster. Obviously, Ramsey, Rochelle, Troy Hill are locks. They also have David Long and Grant Haley, Tyler Hall, and they drafted Kobe Durant and Darian Kendrick, who they're both of which they're very high on, and then 3 undrafted free agents: Caesar Williams, T.J. Carter, and Duron Lowe. So, however, I do think they're going to have to obviously going to get this down pretty quickly. So I think it's going to be Grant Haley and Tyler Hall will be cut, as well as the 3 undrafted free agents.
And there you go. Those guys are cut courtesy of Tom. And you have 10 more to go. 10 more players have to go. You have a pretty decent safety room here as well.
Yeah, so in the safety room, obviously we have Fuller, Rapp, and Scott. And coming back, we also have Terrell Burgess there, who everybody wants to see play. With his, he had some early success year before last, and didn't get much play time last year. And obviously, Jake Gervais is still there, but drafted 2 safeties: Quentin Lake from UCLA. They're very high on. A lot of people think he's Jordan Fuller 2.0. That's how he plays and so forth. And a guy in the 7th round, Russ Yeast, who also shows some promise from Kansas State. So those are the 2 draft picks. And then Daniel Issam and Jaron McVay, undrafted free agents. And so, but I think we're going to have to start the cuts here with Gervais, Issam, and McVay.
Base is another guy that just sticks around, keeps on coming back.
Yeah, practice squad guy who
right.
Who they feel strongly enough about, and he isn't getting picked up by somebody else. So
okay, we're at 60 players. We haven't looked at special teams yet. Did you want to make another cycle through any of the other position groups, or where do you want to go with this? You're the GM. You tell me.
well, we can go and make the. So let's see. You're at You are at 60. Is that right? I'm
60
trying to see.
players. We've cut 30. So you have 7 more to cut, and it ain't
Okay.
going to be easy.
Yeah. So let's see here. Uh, we can go over to special teams and um, and just make the cut. I think uh, Cameron Dicker, the undrafted free agent from Texas, who's a punter as well as a kicker, I think he'll end up beating out Riley Dixon. He brings too much to the table. He has the pros are he can also kick. He can kick do the long kick. He can do the kickoffs as well as longer field goals. We saw Matt Gay miss some um, longer field goals last year, especially at the end of the year when his leg was getting tired because he had all the kicking duties, and that was a problem. The downside of Dicker is that he doesn't have the experience that Dixon has at as the holder in the kicking game. So Dicker would have to learn to do that. So, but in this case we'll go ahead and cut Riley Dixon.
Okay. Took care of that for you. Yeah, that's something that'll clearly work its way. That's one of those positions that I think the decisions become pretty easy for coaches. It's there's not a lot of ambiguousness ambiguity when it comes to punters. It's pretty easy to sort out who the best guy is through training camp. Who knows? But okay, I've cut Riley Dixon. Where are you going next?
Yeah, I think we're going to go to we're going to have to go revisit this running back situation. I think they will carry three, and I think they're very high on Kyron Williams from Notre
You're not going
Dame.
to cut my Jake Funk, are you?
I think we're going to have to cut Jake Funk.
Oh, man.
Yeah, obviously.
I just love his story. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I don't know for sure. I mean, this is. I would love to. There's a lot. Obviously, a lot of these guys we'd love to keep, but I think that's gonna. Now he'll probably end
yeah,
up being on the practice squad, and he'll be there in case one of these guys gets hurt or
yeah.
something like that. But
He could very likely get picked up by someone else, but uh, yanked from our practice squad. But okay.
yeah. So if we move over to wide receiver, I think that's pretty well set. I don't think we're going to be moving anybody uh, off of that squad. Skronik won't get a lot of snaps as long as everybody else stays healthy, but he's a really strong special teams player. Um, and they really like Jacob Harris and want to get him, now that he's healthy, get him worked in. Obviously, he can also move over to tight end as well. So, yeah. So, yeah, and you'd already pulled Mark way off the tight end list. So I think that group is pretty well set as well.
It looks like there's some cutting down to do on the offensive line for sure.
Yeah, interestingly, they do carry 9, but we do have to make another cut there. So I think it's going to come down to, they like this AJ Curry. He's a big guy. They got him in the second to last pick. So it'll be interesting to see where they go on the offensive line cut. Obviously, Logan Bruss, who was their their third round draft pick, who was the Rams' first draft pick, they really feel like is going to slot in immediately at right guard. And so that leaves 4 players to choose from, right? AJ Jackson, Bobby Evans, Tremaine Ingram, and AJ Curry. And I feel like they're going to keep the other 3. I feel like, unfortunately, Curry is going to be the odd man out.
Yeah.
And Coleman Shelton obviously is the lock for the primary backup guard and center.
Okay. So our Curry is gone. All right.
Defense is a lot harder. I think that if we go over to defensive line, I think they're going to have to make a decision between Bobby Brown and Ernest Brown. And I think Bobby
Right.
Brown's going to win out. And I think Ernest Brown may get cut. So I think we'll move him over.
I was kind of thinking the same thing, but I don't want to push you in any particular direction. You have 3 more cuts.
Yeah. So I think now we're getting down to it, right? So now we have the on the edge. We have, I think, what are 4 locks: Floyd, Hollins, Garrett, and Lewis. Daniel Hardy is sitting there as a 5th edge. They do typically like 5 edges. So he's a favorite in my book to make this team. They do like his athleticism, and he could play a role on special teams. So I think we'll keep Hardy. Now we go to inside linebacker. They typically keep 4 inside linebackers, and it's going to come down to whether they want to keep that 4th inside linebacker or the 6th cornerback. So I think in this case, if we have 5 currently at inside linebacker. We have Ernest Jones, Trevin Howard, Bobby Wagner are the locks, I think. And then it's going to come down to Christian Roseboom and Jake Hummel. And so I think we're going to go ahead and cut Christian Roseboom. I think Hummel has a very good chance of making this team. But we're going to have to come back and look at that against the cornerbacks. So now we're down to 55.
Okay.
So if we move over to safety, they typically keep 5 safeties, I think. And so we have Fuller, Rapp, and Scott, I think, are the locks. And then it's going to come down to Terrell Burgess, Quentin Lake, and Russ Yeast. Russ Yeast being their 7th round draft pick from Kansas State. So I think Quentin Lake, unless something goes terribly wrong, is going to for sure be number 4. And now it comes down to Burgess and Russ Yeast in that as a competition. They certainly didn't like Burgess very much last year. Even when he did get on the field, he made some really athletic plays, which we all remember him for the prior year. But he also he made some bonehead plays mentally, and they yanked him off the field a lot after he went on the field. I remember how many safeties they went through, and he was sort of the bottom of the list there at the end of the year. So having said that, I think they're going to keep him, and unfortunately, I think they're going to cut their 7th round draft pick, Russ Yeast.
Yeah, right now you have 6 cornerbacks and 5 safeties. That would be the max number, I think, of DBs. You'd carry 11, maybe even 1 less, but you have 1 more cut to make.
One more cut to make. This is the hardest cut.
Yeah, you got 54 guys in the weight room, and one of them knows it's their last day on the team, and Tom walks in and starts scanning the room, and they're all trying to hide from you.
That's right. That's right.
And
So I think this is going to come down to 2 guys. And I think that it's going to be an inside linebacker or a cornerback that's going to get the next cut. And so if we obviously, just to recap, we have Ernest Jones, Trevin Howard, and Bobby Wagner as locks, Jake Hummel on the bubble. And then we have on cornerback, Jalen Ramsey, Robert Rochelle, David Long, Troy Hill, and Kobe Durant. Their 4th round draft pick are all but locks. So this is going to come down to Jake Howell and Darian Kendrick. 2 players I love. Unfortunately, I think they really love Darian Kendrick, and a lot of people think he was one of their best draft picks, including myself. And he's just a uber athlete who made some mistakes, fell because of it, and but just a tremendous athlete. And if he's gotten his act together, that could be a steal. And certainly if he is cut, he will be picked up by somebody else. So I think the answer is the last cut is Jake Hummel, who I also love. And they go with 3 inside linebackers and do something that they did at the end of the year last year, which was use some of the edges. They put 3 edges on the field several times, especially near the end of the year when they were so down at inside linebacker when Ernest Jones was hurt and so forth. And so I think they could employ that strategy again because they had good success there. Those inside linebackers, those edges, those athletic edges can move and can guard intermediate pass routes. And I think that might be something that they do, but yet to be seen. So there we are. We're down to 53.
Yeah, good job. There's a few things that I would probably disagree with you a little bit on, but that's to be expected. I won't get into that. I won't get into that. I'll share that. Maybe I'll do a follow up on this and show my roster as well. So you ended up with the three quarterbacks. We all know who they are. For you, those of you who are listening, the three running backs. For those of you who are listening and can't see this display here, the three running backs, Akers, Henderson, and Williams, the six wide receivers, and that includes Tutu Atwell and Jacob Harris in that count. The three tight ends, Ram fans, you know who those three are, and that's not counting Jacob Harris, who's in the wide receiver column. And we have nine offensive linemen. That includes Havenstein, Noteboom, Edwards, Allen, Shelton, AJ Jackson, Bobby Evans, Tremaine Ankrum, and the rookie Logan Bruss. Four special teamers, Matt Gay, Brandon Powell, the long snapper Orzek, and Dicker, our new punter and long kicker, shall we call him? At
Yeah.
the six defensive linemen, including Bobby Brown, Marquise Copeland, no Ernest Brown on that list. And we have five edge guys, Floyd, Hollins, Garrett, Lewis, and Hardy. Only three inside linebackers, but I don't think that's a reach. Ernest Jones, Trevin Howard, Bobby Wagner. Six cornerbacks, the two rookies, plus Troy Hill, David Long, Robert Rochelle, and Jalen Ramsey. And five safeties, Quentin Lake, Terrell Burgess, Nick Scott, Taylor Rapp, Jordan Fuller. So that's about it. Good roster. I think you're right. There's going to be some really tough decisions at the end here. Um, and that I will say the one thing that I think the Rams might be tempted to go with two quarterbacks because there are so many position players, other position groups that just have some really talented guys. I mean that's my one thought here. Um, the only comment I'm going to make. I think you did a good job, though. I can't argue with most of it.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. Yeah, we'll have to see. I think that uh, obviously there will be some surprises that are we can't anticipate at this point, but hopefully the some of these, especially these undrafted free agents, as well as these draft picks, will make it really tough on Les Snead and Sean McVay, and they'll be able to hopefully stash some of those guys on the practice squad because, as we know. And certainly injuries will always play a role. So it'd be nice to have some of those studs on the practice squad ready to come back up and contribute right away if there's some bad luck.
Yeah, and the preseason games sometimes they can be so misleading. I see guys in the preseason that I'm like, oh man, this guy is stepping up, and then next week he's cut. So I think it has a lot more to do with what goes on those practice fields and in those study halls that they have than what we see in preseason games.
Yeah, they had made the comment that they obviously Rams notoriously don't value those preseason games, especially for some of the starters. I mean, they see some of these guys play and whatnot, but it's not necessarily fair to judge guys in the preseason when they're not playing alongside
Right.
the all stars, right? How is it? How can you judge somebody at a cornerback position if Jalen Ramsey's not on the other side and so forth? So
Right.
they what they say is that they really get most of their intel on how these guys are playing when they play those practice games against other teams at practice
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
in those controlled environments where they're able to set things up on offense and defense to specifically test guys against each other. So if there's two cornerbacks, they'll put a guy in for one series and then the same the another guy in for the next series in the same exact setup and see how they play head to head, if you will. And so that's where they say they learn the most. And so it'll be fun if anybody can get out to and see some of those practices. Those are by far the most fun practices when they're doing those scrimmages against other teams.
Yeah, and I think we'll use your exercise here to, we'll add on to that. We'll have some other guys, including my special assistant, myself, maybe taking your roster and addressing the changes that we think we would make. But yeah, good stuff, lots of fun. And remember, you can listen to this on the podcast, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, the podcast will have a couple other segments that are really enjoyable. And if you're listening on the podcast, if you jump on the YouTube channel, you will see the visual, obviously, that we work through. It's a lot of fun. Okay, Tom, thanks a lot, man. And you have a good rest of your day.
Yep. See you on Twitter at Ramsbeat, and look forward to continuing the conversation as the preseason progresses.
Okay, thanks a lot. Out here.
Bye-bye.